Coming up on NTV tonight.
Tonight, brace for tougher times ahead. From airtime to bank transfers, President recommends extra ways to tax you as MPs are whipped into submission to support 8% fuel levy.
NASA offers its conditional support for the initiative to cut VAT from the initial 16% to 8%.
Also tonight, trading blame amid infant deaths.
Out of the 11 bodies that were confirmed yesterday, we can entirely account for each and every child with the tagging and notification of deaths.
Health officials contradict Governor Sonko on claims of negligence behind discovery of infant bodies.
And a village in shock.
Hakuwa amekufa. Sasa watu wakasema nini, wakaanza nini kupiga duru. Wakapiga duru. Watu nini wakakuja, tukamchukua, tukampeleka nini hospitali. Kufika hospitali hakuwako.
10-year-old boy commits suicide in Muranga under unclear circumstances.
Plus, gruesome murder ropes in Governor Obado's wife. Helen Obado summoned in connection with Sharon's death, and a vehicle that may have been used for Sharon's ride to death is impounded.
NTV Tonight with Dennis Okari and Olive Burrows.
Glad you are watching and thank you so much for joining us. Our sign language presenter is Flora Atieno. Now, if you thought that life is already hard and your pockets are already punctured, well, brace yourself because you are likely to have an even tougher time. That is, if Parliament votes to approve the proposals in the presidential memo on the Finance Bill 2018. Now, there are two components to this memo. One is tax measures and the other is budget cuts. So let's start with taxes. President Uhuru Kenyatta proposed to cut VAT on petroleum products from 16% to 8%. Even as that still spells a more expensive life than what you had been living on, you're about to pay more taxes as the government seeks to raise more funds for its development plans. So let's start with one of the most commodities in the country, that is kerosene. Now, with kerosene, the president is introducing an 18 shilling per litre tax of kerosene under the name adulteration levy. Kerosene currently retails at 97 shillings and 70 cents in Nairobi, which factors in the 16% VAT. With the new levy, that figure will shoot to 112 shillings and 15 cents. And I'm sure most of you have phones, and using your phone is now going to be expensive because when we move to this next slide, mobile data and airtime services, I look at the social media timelines, obviously you will see complaints upon complaints about how quickly airtime and data bundles are running out. This is about to get even costlier as the president proposes that the tax moves from the current 10% to 15% currently for every 100 shillings you spend buying airtime or data. This is what this will mean. 10 shillings goes to tax. But now, if the president proposal is approved, you'll pay 15 shillings tax for every 100 shillings you spend. Now, the next one is going to be still on mobile phones, mobile money cash transfer. Now, so far, things have been very, very tough. And on different platforms, this is what has been going on. But with what the president wants is you to pay more taxes to move money across mobile platforms. In the 2018-2019 budget, the Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich had proposed to increase the tax from the current 10% to 12%. Many people complained, but the president is proposing to increase this tax to a further 20%. That's not all. That is in the president's basket of surprises. If you are a betting lover, for those who love sports over the weekend, you will now pay 20% tax on all your winnings. If you win 100 shillings, for example, the government is going to take 20 shillings, unlike before when you would take it all. Now, but as the president proposes to tax the winnings, this is for all the people who win during these betting competitions, he is offering reprieve to betting companies. And these betting companies, there's going to be a slash from the tax that was proposed, 35%, that the MPs proposed to 15%. So now, let's bring it home. The current budget proposes a housing levy of 1%. Of 1.5%, a 0.5% contribution by the employer and 0.5% contribution by the employee. MPs shot down this proposal. However, The president not only wants this tax to stay, but also wants to increase the contributions to a total of 3%, 1% to be contributed by the employer, in my case, Nation Media Group, and 1.5 by myself from my payslip. And more bitter proposals for chocolate lovers. Every kilo of chocolate that you're going to buy every chocolate you're going to buy will now attract a 20 shilling levy. Now, this means that for every 1,000 shillings you spend on a kilo of chocolate, 200 shillings will go to tax. Curious to see the trends and spends around February 14th if this passes. So let's go to the bank. President Uhuru Kenyatta wants you to pay a 20% levy on every transaction you make, up from the current 10%. Now, this means that, for instance, from the 30 shilling you are charged for ATM transactions, the government will now take 6 shillings instead of 3 shillings. These, of course, will eat into banks' revenue, and so it is likely to be passed on to you and increase the amount you are charged per transaction. Now, those are a lot of taxes to prepare yourself for. On the flip side of the memo, the president wants to cut 55 billion shillings from government expenditure. For context, this is 1.8 of the 3 trillion shillings budget. The supplementary budget is cutting down the county government's budget from 314 billion shillings to 304 billion. These figures are too astronomical. Now, the development expenditure will also come down from 677 billion to 642 billion shillings. The consolidated fund will remain untouched at 962 billion shillings, and the recurrent expenditure, which has been a consistent point of concern and criticism, has been increased from 1.02 trillion shillings to 1.06 trillion, while the national government's budget reduces from 2.7 trillion to 2.6 trillion. Now, this then brings the total budget down from 3.026 trillion shillings to 2.97 trillion. That is what the president wants, and his wish may just be your command if the National Assembly gives his memorandum the green light. Back to you, Olive Burrows.
And staying with that story, the National Assembly will on Thursday debate the President's recommendations on how to fund the 2018-2019 budget captured in a memorandum submitted to the House today. Kennedy Muraythi looks at the recommendations and tells of why the government is insistent on raising certain taxes to fund its budget. I apologize for that. As Dennis captured in his story, life is going to get very expensive. Some of the areas to be affected include the cost of petroleum, which, as Dennis detailed there, will increase from the current 97 shillings and 70 cents per litre and will now start retailing at 112 shillings and 15 cents. Airtime and data services are also bound to increase in cost, and that means for every 100 shillings you pay for airtime or data, you'll be paying 15% more. Now, the National Assembly will be debating these proposals on Thursday, and here is Kennedy Muraythi's report.
In his memorandum to the National Assembly outlining the reasons he rejected the 2018 finance bill as passed by the House last month, President Uhuru Kenyatta warned of a budget deficit if his recommendations are not adopted. President Kenyatta says an estimated 35 billion shillings is projected to be realized from the revenue on the fuel VAT.
The member who is making a way, please.
The president argues that failure to pass the finance bill will stall the government's development projects such as infrastructure, education and affordable healthcare. In persuading MPs, the president has gone ahead to name countries such as South Africa at 14%, Ghana at 15% and Nigeria at 5% as countries benefiting from the VAT. He says the VAT on petroleum products is supposed to supplement domestic revenue mobilization. The recommendations have now been commuted to the Finance Committee for scrutiny and onward report writing and submission to Parliament on Thursday morning.
The people we represent believe we are here concerns VAT And it is a matter over which I know there is a conscious decision by members. It's a matter we can vote straight away.
My minority leader is threatening me with the consequences of participating in this House pursuant to Article 117, which states that this House, there is freedom of speech in this House, and everybody will follow its conscience, and that this is a house of debate. Mr. Speaker, sir, he is talking about issues which are outside of this parliament. And Mr. Speaker, sir, it is the same thing which the leader of majority, in a way in which he is trying to cast us persons by telling us about this parliamentary democracy.
Some MPs insist Thursday's voting will be one to reclaim their independence from their political party bosses, while others say they are convinced these measures will go well into funding the budget deficit. Kennedy Muredi, NTV.
Staying on that story, members of parliament from both sides of the political aisle who had drawn the battle lines ahead of the debate on the finance bill this afternoon were on this occasion speaking in one voice, all rallying behind the president's proposal to reduce the tax on petroleum products by half.
Both sides had before Parliament session been in their respective parliamentary group meetings where it appears the MPs were whipped into submission. And as Vincent Odwor reports, NC party leader Musalia Mudavadi has called on the president to dissolve his government following the current financial crisis.
The NASA members of parliament emerged from their parliamentary group meeting chaired by their leader Raila Odinga, having toned down on their earlier rhetoric where their leadership had vowed to put up a spirited fight against the president's proposals on the floor of the House. The ODM MPs coalesced around the president, backing his proposal to cut the taxes on fuel by half.
NASA offers its conditional support for the initiative to cut VAT from the initial 16% to 8%. We offer support for the VAT for a period of 1 year.
The ODM MPs coalesced around the president, backing his proposal to cut the taxes on fuel by half. However, NASA's support, they say, was conditional. The leaders read from a drop-down list of proposals that the president should implement to cut down on expenditure.
The government has to do what Kenyan families across the country are doing, which is to cut what we can't afford. The government must tame its appetite for big borrowing. If nothing is done on these proposals, NASA will remove a motion in the next budget to scrap VAT on fuel entirely.
On the other side of the political aisle, members of the Jubilee coalition held a meeting with President Uhuru Kenyatta at State House, where they unanimously resolved to support President's recommendations.
A difficult task for any other member to raise the required 233 members to object the presidential memoranda and referral.
ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi, however, on his part, insists Kenyans have lost their confidence in the government due to its financial indiscipline, saying endemic corruption had been eating into funds meant for development.
Uhuru Kenyatta should dissolve his current crisis-ridden government to reconstitute and re-engineer it anew to regain a foothold in Kenyans' confidence.
Some MPs, however, stepped outside of their official party lines.
That I personally don't support, neither do I support the 8% reduction, nor do I support any cuts to national CDF, to GAF or emergency roads.
In the National Assembly, NASA has 136 members, while Jubilee Coalition has 213 members. This Thursday, the legislators will vote to decide whether to accommodate or reject the president's reservations. For MPs to veto the president's memorandum, they will require at least 233 votes. MPs across the political divide are now torn between party loyalty and responding to the cry of the electorate reeling from an increase in the cost of living due to high taxes. Vincent Odwor, NTV, Nairobi.
The 11 dead infants discovered at the Pumwani hospital died due to normal birth complications.
Health CEC Veska Kagongo contradicted the Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko Mbuvi, who suspended 3 medical officials from the hospital on claims of negligence.
The doctors' union has come out strongly to defend the suspended officials, accusing the county government of neglecting the facility. Charity Mwangi brings us up to date.
Contrary to Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko's allegations of medical negligence and the consequent suspension of officials from the Pumwani hospital after the discovery of dead infants stashed in plastic bags, the Health CEC-led team ruled out negligence.
Out of the 11 bodies that were confirmed yesterday, we can entirely account for each and every child with the tagging and notification of deaths.
There were 4 stillbirths as a result of low heart rates or other advanced birth complications. 2 of them were macerated stillbirths, while the other 4 were neonatal deaths. Another one was brought to the hospital for proper disposal.
We have a designated room, and that is where the bodies were found. And we have to make do with the resources that we have to make sure that we package the bodies in a way that they can be transported for suitable storage and disposal in the city mortuary.
The health officials are reading politics into the governor's impromptu visit.
It's quite unfortunate that it is management that they want to change. It's unfortunate that Dr. Mutinda had to leave the country to go to Lusaka on Sunday night, only for her to be suspended the next day.
And this hospital is run by health professionals. There's no one here who is a political player.
Despite the findings after the meeting, the suspension of doctors remains in effect until the investigation by a multi-agency team proves that they were not culpable.
Mr. Governor, our consultant. We are all nurses. These are nurses crisis.
According to the governor's communication team, the suspended doctors have been negligent in their service delivery, information the team says was given by nurses and other staff members during a meeting with the governor.
Sisi kama muungano wa madaktari tumesema ya kwamba wale walingatuliwa kazini warudishwe. Kama hawatarudishwa tutaitisha mgomo wa madaktari Nairobi.
It is seemingly a case of the hunter becoming the hunted. The doctors' union has come out strongly in defense of the suspended doctors, raising allegations of squandered money that could have gone a long way in improving services here at the Pumwani Maternity Hospital. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
Now, a development on that story, Governor Mike Sonko has suspended the County Secretary Peter Kariuki, the Health CEC Veska Kagongo, Health CO Mahat Jimale, and the County Attorney Lydia Kwamboka over insubordination on the Pumwani Hospital saga.
Well, he has therefore appointed new officials to replace the ones that he's already suspended, and one of them is Pauline Kahiga, who is now going to act as the county secretary, Charles K. Rich to act as the CEM Health, Mohammed Saleh to act as Chief Officer Health Services, David Aseko, who's the current Legal Affairs Director, is going to act as the county attorney. So those are the new changes, and this has just come in from Governor Mike Sonko over this Pumwani saga.
Yeah, and that is, of course, is in response to that story you listened in on by Charity Mwangi, where these health officials contradicted the governor, saying the death of those 11 infants was normal.
And one of those who contradicted his statement is the one who's just been suspended, Kagongo.
Yes.
Well, over the years, Pumwani Maternity Hospital has received a backlash over a number of issues ranging from the death of newborns to rampant cases of missing babies after birth.
This time round, the script is almost the same, but with a twist of politics. NTV's Zainab Ismail gives us a glimpse of what ails the maternity hospital.
Repairs at the Pumwani Maternity Hospital are ongoing, an indication that business is as usual. Women streaming in and out of the hospital, oblivious of the fact that it is now on the spot for allegedly the death of 11 infants. And one thing is now clear: Pumwani Maternity Hospital does not have a morgue. The facility does not have a cold room either. That is the state of a hospital that has been in operation for the past 60 years, where thousands of mothers visit during pregnancy and delivery. One medical officer who has worked with the hospital for nearly 2 decades and who requested not to be identified for fear of reprisal says the staff is overworked and the working conditions are not very conducive.
Manpower iangaliwe. Na let the hospital have whatever is supposed to be having. Kama incinerator waangalie waone what is supposed to be having there. Kuko na vitu mingi sana sinakosa. Lakini nao unakuta saa ingine ni pesa hakuna and the county does not want to release the money. So, challenges kama hizo.
Our spot check reveals that even the delivery room is not in the best of state.
Money has been set aside to upgrade the theaters of Pumwani Maternity Hospital. 7 million last year. It is in the financial audits. That money has not reached here. You get. So let's tell Kenyans the truth.
This is not the first time the hospital is grabbing the headlines for the wrong reasons. Early this month, a woman was arrested for stealing a baby from the maternity ward. In January 2015, Jacinta Wenjiku delivered twins at the facility before she was told her babies were stillborn. But after protests, her request for a DNA test to establish the truth was granted, revealed the dead twins were not hers. In the early 2000s, the hospital was at the center of the Miracle Babies scandal involving televangelist Gilbert Dare. Dare was accused of stealing 5 children between May 1999 and December 2004 from Pumwani.
Pumwani, which was once a pioneer maternity hospital in the sub-Saharan Africa, has been dogged with a number of issues over the years that had seen it lost its glory. But despite all that, it still remains a critical part of the health sector within Nairobi County. Zainab Ismail, NTV.
Tonight, the Senate House Business Committee is on the spot for allegedly removing the Raraka Land Report debate from today's order paper.
The senators were expected to either adopt or reject the report compiled by the Public Investment and Accounts Committee.
Investigations into the Raraka Land Report was riddled with bribery claims amid fears of external pressure in the ongoing controversy.
NTV's Seth Olale with the latest twist to the explosive report that implicates a cabinet secretary, principal secretary and senior National Lands Commission officials over the irregular 3.2 billion compensation for the controversial piece of land.
NTV is in possession of the 2 order papers, both dated Tuesday 18th, 2018. In the first order paper, the debate on the Raraka land was scheduled as item 15 titled Motion on the Report on the Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investment on the Inquiry into Possible Loss of Funds through Acquisition of Land for Public Use. However, in the revised order paper, the Raraka land report debate was replaced by motion on the enforcement of the National Transport and Safety Authority operation of Motorcycle Regulations 2015 as item number 15.
To adequately play a monitoring and evaluation role,
the Senate House Business Committee, which is chaired by Speaker Kenneth Lusaka, is the body mandated to schedule departmental reports in the order paper to be debated and adopted by the House. There are now concerns as to why the House Business Committee is delaying the scheduling of the Raraka land report in the order paper more than a month after it was tabled by the Senate Public Accounts and Investments Committee that is chaired by Homa Bay Senator Moses Kajwang.
Order, Mr. Nyamai. First of all, we don't know who you are.
The report recommended that Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i and Education Principal Secretary Belio Kipsang be held personally responsible over the irregular compensation of 3.2 billion shillings over a land claimed to be owned by businessman Francis Mburu. The report states that Matiang'i and Kipsang approved the payment of 1.5 billion shillings for the reacquisition of the land, of which Ruaraka High and driving school seats, pending another 1.7 billion shillings balance. Apart from the Speaker, other members of the House Business Committee include Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen, Minority Leader James Orengo, Nakuru Senator Susan Kihika, Makueni Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Isiolo Senator Fatuma Dulo, Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja, Mandera Senator Mohammed Mahmoud, West Pokot Senator Samuel Pogisho, Ledama Olekina, who is the Narok Senator, as well as nominated Senator Petronila Were, Prior to the tabling of the report at the Senate last month, there were claims that 4 committee members solicited for 100 million shillings during the probe on the controversial Ruaraka land compensation. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Office of Director of Public Prosecution, as well as the Directorate of Criminal Investigations have until end of October to complete investigating all those implicated in the report. Seth Olale, NTV, Parliament Buildings.
West Pokot Governor John Lonyangapuo has defended his deputy living and working in the United States for over 6 months. The governor, who was grilled by officials from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission in Eldoret, defended Dr. Nicholas Atudonyang's operations from the U.S., saying they have proved productive for the county. Lonyangapuo says that the extended foreign trips had enabled the county receive medical equipment, among other goodies.
The deputy governor has been receiving a salary and other benefits from the county government amid allegations that he has not been performing his duties. EACC officials say they had received complaints from some members of the public regarding the deputy governor's absence, prompting the investigation. Aside from the governor, who is accusing political opponents of trying to tarnish his name, other senior officers from the county were also grilled.
Around 11 o'clock, and we have had some good discussion with him. He has given us his account, which we will take into consideration as we continue to investigate the allegation.
I can confirm to you that my deputy governor has been away from end of March. He was supposed to come in May, end of May, but as the CEO of the county, I extended his stay because of the activity that he was doing. No air ticket was given to the deputy governor. No per diem was given to the deputy governor. No money for travels within the U.S. continent, none.
From that story, we take a short break as we also allow Olive to take a glass of water to clear her throat. But we'll be back with more stories.
Welcome back. Helen Obado, the wife of Migori Governor Obado, was today summoned by police to record a statement at the DCI office in Migori.
The governor's wife is alleged to have exchanged text messages with the late Sharon Otieno. At the same time, police are looking at Helen Obado's brother, Naftali Odie, as a person of interest in the case.
A week after her husband was questioned by DCI officers in Kisumu, Helen Obado will be questioned on Wednesday in relation to the death of a young woman who is claimed to have been carrying her husband's child.
One of my daughters here.
The governor's wife is alleged to have been in communication with a deceased university student over her alleged relationship with her husband. At the same time, Naftali Odie, the brother of Helen Obado, is also a person of interest in the murder. Details have also emerged that the owner of a motor vehicle in police custody and believed to have ferried the late Sharon to her death belongs to Olivia Olo Adhiambo, who is closely connected to a key figure in the Obado administration. The vehicle, a Toyota Fielder registration number KCL 481, is registered under Olivia Olo's name. Olivia Olo, who is the second wife to Kaspal Obiero, a personal aide to the governor, recorded a statement with DCI officers in Migori while the driver of the vehicle was arrested and arraigned in court on Monday in Oyugis. The driver, Jackson Otieno Gombe, is currently remanded for 14 days to give the investigators time. Meanwhile, Michael Oyamo, another aide to Governor Obado, has another 8 days in remand before he is presented back in court. Senior police officers in the region are remaining tight-lipped over new developments, although sources had earlier indicated to the Daily Nation that police are looking for a second vehicle suspected to have been used by one of the masterminds on the day of the abduction and murder. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
Judges and magistrates are now asking the government to beef up the security following the murder of the daughter of one of their colleagues in Meru.
The judges spoke after visiting the family of the late Maribel Capolon, who was kidnapped and murdered. The judges and magistrates' plea for more security came as residents of the town held demonstrations demanding justice for the slain child.
Members of the bench gather at the home of their colleague, Meru Senior Resident Magistrate Carol Kemei. They have come to condole with her over the brutal murder of her 9-year-old daughter, Maribel Capolon. Maribel was found murdered and her body dumped in the Imenti forest after going missing for 11 days. Her mother, Magistrate Kemei, is still in shock over the loss she has suffered. Her colleagues want speedy and thorough investigations into the murder of the little girl.
The relevant agencies entrusted with investigations, we do a thorough job, arrest the culprits, bring them before us, and we do justice to them.
The murder has the judges and magistrates worried about their own security.
We are now afraid that this may not stop and that our families will continue to be targeted as we feel Maribel was.
Although we are human, judges and magistrates are human beings, when such attacks go to the extent of targeting our children, but of course there's some level of fear. And therefore the oath of office that we took, that we shall serve justice without fear, to some extent becomes a mirage.
But the Meru County Commissioner says the judges and magistrates need not to worry about that.
Hii instance imefanyika, si ati imefanyika inalenga judiciary. Hii instance is an isolated case. Maofisa ya court wako salama wanafanya kazi.
That same security assurance is what residents of Meru, led by human rights activists, want for all the residents, but more importantly, the school-going children.
This is so painful. It is too painful to the parents. But children are also innocent. We want to ask for your continuous intervention, especially on security of our children.
The activists spoke as they held demonstrations in the town protesting the murder. Their march took them through the streets in the town to the law courts and eventually to the county headquarters, where they sought audience with the county governor, Kiraitu Murungi.
Kazi ile kubwa ya serikali ni kulinda maisha na mali ya wananchi wa Kenya. Na maisha si maisha ya watu wakubwa peke yao, hata maisha ya watoto.
The demonstrations triggered by the gruesome discovery of the body of the late Maribel Capolon. Capolon, aged 9, had disappeared on her way back from school 11 days ago. The motive of the murder is yet to be established. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
And the unfortunate tales of suicide reported across the country continue, and this time a 10-year-old boy in Muranga.
Caleb Mihunyo, a class 3 pupil, allegedly ended his life on Sunday. A family member found the boy's body dangling off the branch of a tree, meters away from their house.
Misery written all over their faces. Shock, disbelief and sorrow punctuate the atmosphere. This family is mourning the death of their 10-year-old boy Caleb Muhinyo, who allegedly committed suicide.
Anko yake alikuwa anaenda huko nini kwa blot. Akaenda kwa blot akaona mtoto ako nini kwa mti. Akaangalia akamuita. Nani Caleb. Hakuitika, akakimbia huko juu. Akaita nini baba Caleb, wakamtoa juu ya nini ya mti, akaanguka.
Caleb had been sent to deliver a rope to his aunt a few meters from their home. He took longer than expected to, and his family wondered why he was yet to get back home. They went out to search for him only to find his body hanging off a tree by the same rope he was to deliver.
Hatujaona hiyo case in any time or another time, because this is a first na tunaomba Mungu atusaidie tusione ingine.
The family is still trying to put pieces of the puzzle together, trying to figure out why their standard 3 boy chose to end his life. They say there had been no family dispute and Caleb got along with people. The boy's father, Julius Chege, has signed an affidavit allowing the burial to proceed without a post-mortem being performed. Helen Aura, NTV.
We take a short break now, but on the other side of the break is Dan Mwangi with the business.
Good evening and welcome to NTV Business. I'm Dan Mwangi. The Kenya Pipeline Company has been forced to recall 14 trucks that were destined to deliver fuel to various destinations from its Kisumu depot due to contamination of the product by water. All the 14 trucks that had already left the facility were ordered back to the station, and by mid this afternoon, they had all returned. KPC has stopped using the affected tank, that is. The company is in the process of decanting the affected trucks, and early this evening sent a statement indicating that 7 of the 14 have successfully gone through the process. KPC has not stated what caused the contamination of the tank with water, a rare occurrence which was fortunately arrested in good time. The Communications Authority of Kenya has directed telecom operators in the country to submit details of agents and sub-agents that deal in sales and subscriber registration on their behalf and review their respective subscriber registration databases as the regulator moves to stem the growing wave of SIM swap motivated financial fraud that has rocked the telecom sector. Victor Kiprop has more.
Amid the growing cases of SIM swap perpetrated fraud across the country, the Communications Authority of Kenya set out to undertake a forensic audit on subscriber registration by mobile operators in order to determine if mobile subscribers in the country were registered in accordance to the law. And the results were not surprising.
In most cases, dangerous trend was noted where MNO databases that had records which appeared to have been populated from other secondary sources were being used. Other SIM cards were found to have multiple registrations with different identity details with the potential use for criminal purposes.
According to the findings of the audit, while all mobile operators had data access security policies in place, there were a number of non-conformities with the SIM card registration regulations. The biggest risk uncovered by the audit was the fact that mobile operators had little or no control over the activities of SIM sales agents, a gap that has left their subscriber databases incomplete and inaccurate.
Agreements between operators and agents are purely commercial and do not place any obligations on the agents with respect to adherence to the SIM card regulations. This is a dangerous trend that jeopardizes the security of citizens in the country and must therefore stop.
As a result, the regulator has now directed telecom firms to review their subscriber registration databases and switch off all unregistered, partly registered and procedurally registered, fraudulently registered SIM cards and those with multiple ownerships. The operators are also required to submit to the authority details of their agents and sub-agents, including company registration details, number of outlets and locations in which they operate, among other things.
The authority plans to undertake a further audit to ascertain compliance with these directives in 3 months' time. I wish once again to remind all Kenyans that SIM card registration regulations outlawed the hawking of SIM cards. Hawking SIM cards is an offense that attracts a fine of up to 500,000 shillings or 12 months imprisonment or both.
In recent months, tens of Kenyans have lost their money through cases of fraudulent SIM card swapping that allow scammers to access their mobile money wallets and their banking accounts. The country's largest telecoms company, Safaricom, has already announced that it is considering using fingerprint identification for key services. Victor Kiprop, NTV Business.
Some corporate news now. Vivo Energy has begun executing a plan to expand into additional 9 countries in sub-Saharan Africa as it completes a deal to take over several service stations under the Engine Holdings brand. The deal, valued at an estimated 20 billion shillings, will see Vivo's footprint on the continent grow from the current 15 countries to 23 countries. The new markets for Vivo Energy are Gabon, Malawi, Mozambique, Reunion, Rwanda, Tanzania, Zambia and Zimbabwe. Engine's Kenya operations, where Vivo Energy already operates, is the 9th country included in the transaction. This takeover, however, does not include Engine's operations in the DRC, but Vivo says it is currently in discussion for a potential acquisition. This deal is expected to be concluded on the 1st of March 2019. Now, the idea of taxing employees 0.5% of their income to go towards the fund for housing to achieve one of the key tenets of the Big Four agenda has run into headwinds in Parliament. Members of the National Assembly are concerned about the benefits the contributions deducted from employees will have on the contributors. Housing CS James Masharia had this to say about the challenge his team has faced in convincing legislators to embrace the proposed law. We apologize for that lack of sound, but the context of this is further added to the fact that the government, the president himself has, in his memorandum, has proposed that the contributions move from 1.5%, rather from 0.5% by each, that's the employer and the employee, to 1.5% by each. Now, the process of acquiring land ownership documents for landowners in Meru is likely to be expedited for easy acquisition of land and the subsequent compensation of the landowners. According to Meru Governor Kiraitu Morongi, landowners who are most likely to give up their land for the construction of a crude oil pipeline from Turkana to Lamu, which is part of the Lapsset Corridor project, will be fairly compensated. The governor was talking after a consultative meeting with Ministry of Land and Energy, National Land Commission and Lapsset Development Authority, including other Meru leaders.
Isiolo Moyale Road.
What is known as the final investment.
250 from the center, 250 to the other edge. We start in Lamu, through Garissa into Meru, through to port, and the key length for the Lamu port is 4.
I will give the chair and give back to the chair so we can complete.
The new chairman of the
We are very happy with the report they have given us about the Lapsset Corridor. We have all agreed to support it and to fast track the issues of title deeds so that the people along the corridor can be paid compensation and the project can start as soon as possible.
As I always say, business and I are done. Have a good night.
Welcome back. South Africa top court has ruled that private personal cannabis use should be legal.
Meanwhile, Dominic Ongwen, a former top commander in Uganda's brutal rebel Lord Resistance Army, is facing 70 charges at the International Criminal Court.
South Africa's top court has today legalized the private
Thank you, Ron. We start with football, and AFC Leopards' quest to finish second in the Kenyan Premier League took a beating as they lost 3-1 to Kariobangi Sharks in a midweek clash played at the Kenyatta Stadium in Machakos. Striker George Abege scored twice, with Duke Abuya scoring Sharks' other goal, while Yvonne Isuza got Leopards consolation. The win, their fifth across all competitions, lifted Sharks to within 4 points of Leopards as they moved up to fifth in the table with 47 points, while Ingwe remained third with 51 points after suffering their 8th loss of the season. On Wednesday, champions Gor Mahia will be aiming to bounce back from their weekend defeat to Thika United when they play Ulinzi Stars at the Kenyatta Stadium in Machakos. Sofapaka face Kakamega Homeboys in Narok, while bottom of the table Thika host Tusker. Let's check out some tennis and the Britam Kenya Open Tuesday action. So top seed Ismail Shangawa of Kenya, who got a first round bye, defeat Christian Vesta 6-2, 6-3 in the second round. This as three-time Kenya Open champion Shufa Shangawa continued her winning run, is in past Rose Wanjala 6-love, 6-1. Meanwhile, second seed Kenya's Ibrahim Kibet, who got a bye to the second round, defeated Brandon Sagala 6-3, 6-3 in the doubles. Ethiopian Yebets Kebebe, partnering with Kenyan Derek Ominde, won their match 6-2, 6-1 against an all-Kenyan duo of Sagala and Mwendwa Mutuko. The veterans category serves off tomorrow with Frenchman Stéphane Beibeu playing Kenyan Timothy Omenda and Zimbabwe's Clement Chabeda fighting it out with Kenyan Charles Karanja. Now, look out for talent away from Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa is the message to the national team selectors from Elvis Mwanga, the coach of the Kapenguria Heroes team, the winners of the first edition of the Chapa Dimba na Safaricom Football Youth Tournament. The coach was speaking on Top Sport following the launch of the second edition of the tournament, which will be in partnership with La Liga.
Mi kama coaches na feel tulikuwa shortchanged na national team management.
That is the frank assessment of the Kapenguria Heroes team coach Elvis Mwanga in regards to selection of the Harambee Stars under-20 team that was unsuccessful in its quest to qualify for the 2019 under-20 Africa Cup of Nations. The under-20 national team had no player from West Pokot County's Kapenguria Heroes, who emerged the winners of the first edition of the Chapa Dimba na Safaricom tournament that started from the grassroots across the country and culminated in a national final.
Agenda ya kwanza ama aim ilikuwa kupromote youth football in Kenya. Wakaanzia kwa grassroots ikakuwa poa. But tukikuja Harambee national team under-20, kuna hata msee hata mmoja kutoka timu yangu aliitwa. Hakuna hata mmoja kutoka kwa ile timu ilicheza semis. Or hata timu ya Central, timu ya Northeastern, na tulikuwa na players wazuri sana.
At the launch of the second edition of the Chapa Dimba na Safaricom tournament, Football Kenya Federation President Nick Mwendwa spoke of the quest to dig for talent from the most remote of villages in Kenya, and stakeholders will be watching to see whether the talent discovered will be given an opportunity.
The biggest thing for football ya Kenya sio elite football, ni grassroots football.
Mpira iko devolve, tupatie vijana opportunity. Unajua isiko tu Nairobi kila saa tunapick Nairobi, Mombasa, Nairobi, Kisumu, Nairobi.
The ball is now in the court of the national football team's selectors. And we do hope that they will heed Elvis Mwanga's call. And now on to vintage cars. And the oldest machine is in the entry list for the CBA Africa Concord Elegance is a 1925 Triumph motorcycle, which is being prepared by Dominique Antoine, a former judge at the event. The Concord will be the 48th in the series of annual events organized by the Alfa Romeo's Owners Club, and it will be held at the Nairobi Racecourse on the September 30th. Antoine became the owner of the Triumph after it was gifted to him in 1980 by his uncle, who worked in the sugar industry in Chemelil. Collecting old motorcycles, cars and equipment has been a lifelong interest for him, and he even owns, get this, an ex-Nairobi City Council fire engine. Now,
checking out vintage cars.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just
okay. Let's start with how do you pronounce it, Okari?
It's Concours d'Elegance.
No, is it Concours?
Ha!
Concours.
There we go.
Am I right?
Concours. I'm Casey. What do you expect?
Well, that's it for NTV tonight. On that funny note, say it again.
Don't say it again.
Okay.
Don't say it again.
Our sign language interpreter has been Flora Atieno. And that's it from me, Olive Burrows.
My name is Dennis Okari.
My name is Warate Kiru.
Have a good night.
Part of my memorandum to cut VAT on petroleum products by 50%.
Sasa imepunguzwa. Sasa mpira imerudi kwa bunge.
The people of Kenya will again look up to their MPs. And if the MPs abandon them, that will be very unfortunate.
President is at some predicament. Why? Because we are discussing revenue-raising measures late in the day when already the budget is approved.
We are being pushed into a new era of tax and spend. We have a huge appetite for borrowing.
We don't want to hear of people traveling first class on public funds because of medical conditions.
But even in the Senate, they would pay because of my condition.
This is where the real conversation happens.
Part of my memorandum to cut VAT on petroleum products by 50%.
Sasa imepunguzwa. Sasa mpira imerudi kwa bunge.
The people of Kenya will again look up to their MPs. And if the MPs abandon them, that will be very unfortunate.
President is at some predicament. Why? Because we are discussing revenue-raising measures late in the day when already the budget is approved.
We are being pushed into a new era of tax and spend. We have a huge appetite for borrowing.
We don't want to hear of people traveling first class on public funds because of medical conditions.
But even in the Senate, they would pay because of my condition.
This is where the real conversation happens.
Part of my memorandum to cut VAT on petroleum products by 50%.
Sasa imepunguzwa. Sasa mpira imerudi kwa bunge.
The people of Kenya will again look